If you are looking to invest in or collect sports cards, but are trying to make sense of the more than 100 different sets and brands of cards that are out there, then this video is for you. Because T Pott from our Sports Card Investor team and I are about to sit down and go sport by sport, manufacturer by manufacturer, and break down the different sets. We're going to tell you which sets are the most investable and why, which sets are maybe the most fun for collectors, and which ones are a great value for you to target. We're going to break it all down next, so let's go ahead and get started. This episode is brought to you by Arena Club. Arena Club is an innovative platform featuring grading and authentication, vaulting, and digital pack openings. Be sure to check out the amazing items up for auction right now at Arena Club. From rare cards to top-tier collectibles, there's something for you at Arena Club. Download the Arena Club app today by searching Arena Club in the App Store on your phone, and then use promo code SCI for 10% off your first purchase of cards at Arena Club. T Pott, welcome back to the Geoff Wilson Show.
Yeah, thanks. I could get used to this.
And you should get used to this because we had you here a couple of weeks ago and we did a video on this show about our top buying mistakes that we've made when buying sports cards. A lot of really good reaction in that video. So I wanted to bring you back today to do another educational type of video, and we're going to do these now fairly often on this channel. This one today, I want to explore sets and brands and manufacturers.
Yeah.
Because it's complicated.
It is.
And when I got back into cards back in like 2018, I was so confused. There were sets that were being made, names that I was familiar with. Yeah. You had, Topps, and you had Donruss, sets like that from when I was a kid. Upper Deck was still around. Leaf was still around. Those were all sets when I was collecting back in the 80s and early 90s. But that was basically all that was similar. Yeah. Everything else felt dramatically different than it did when I was a kid. And even those sets weren't owned by the companies that owned them back then. Their ownership had shifted all around.
Leaf was a completely different Leaf.
It was. Yeah. Not even related to the current Leaf today. Yeah. So it took me a long time to get a full understanding and grasp of all of the different sets and which ones mattered and why. And also understand from an investment standpoint the sets that I wanted to concentrate on, from a collecting standpoint, from a value standpoint, sets that were better for those purposes. It's taken, about 6-7 years? I feel like I've mastered it for the most part, although I still don't know every single element of it. I'm not going to sit here and profess that I'm an expert at the 20 hockey sets, for example, that Upper Deck puts out every single year, although I do know several of them at this point. But I thought it would be great for our audience today if we just spend a little bit of time talking about the different manufacturers, the different brands, and the different sets. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's jump right in. So I thought we could start with the manufacturers. And let's start with Topps. Yep. Topps is obviously getting a lot of publicity these days because they were bought by Fanatics a few years ago. And people kind of use Fanatics and Topps somewhat interchangeably now.
Yeah.
Topps is actually just a brand underneath the Fanatics umbrella, but Topps is the brand that Fanatics uses to produce all of its sports cards. Yep. And of course, Topps has existed for 70-something years.
72?
72 years.
Yeah.
Longer than that. No, it was
since
1952. 1951.
Bowman.
There was no. There was a 1951 Topps set. It was the little tiny like playing cards.
See, I'm learning every day.
Yeah,
too.
There was a 51 Topps set.
I guess okay, that's interesting.
You don't think of it that way because it wasn't the full-size collectible cards.
Right.
It was different. It was like a little game with like tiny little cards that you tore off. But technically, they existed back in 51.
So 73 years.
73 years of Topps baseball. And so, you fast forward to today, and Topps is putting out 30, 40, 50 sets a year just in baseball. I don't know the exact number, but we're going to talk a lot about it today.
It's a lot.
And then they've got non-sports. They've started to put out football and basketball sets recently again, although those are unlicensed. They used to put those out. I thought just to kind of bring the audience up to speed on the licensing situation, maybe we start there.
Okay.
So Fanatics buys Topps. Topps has the official Major League Baseball license. They extended that. Technically, Fanatics actually kind of stole it away from Topps, but then they bought Topps.
That's right.
So now Topps is operating under Fanatics license.
Yep.
But Topps has been the exclusive producer of officially licensed baseball cards for many years. And officially licensed meaning they actually can put the team logos on the cards. And they will be that officially licensed producer of those cards for many more years to come. I think their deal is 20 years or something like that, with the option to renew and for it to go longer. They, as of this moment, cannot create officially licensed basketball or football cards, but soon they will. Because the basketball license, which is currently controlled by Panini, shifts to Topps in, I believe it is October of 2025, and the football license in April of 2026. So we're about a year away from Topps officially producing licensed basketball cards under their many brands like Topps Chrome and Bowman Chrome and all the other brands we're going to talk about today. And we're then about a year and a half away from Topps producing football cards under all of those types of brands as well. But this has not stopped Topps in recent months from starting to come out with some football cards and basketball cards. They've just been unlicensed.
Yeah. They also recently, I believe, got the exclusive licenses for UFC.
Yes, they did.
And WWE too.
WWE.
And they've been buying other stuff up too. Like lots of different stuff. They've got soccer's broken up in an interesting way where it's kind of like by league. And so you'll have, Prism will put out like English Premier League stuff, but then you'll have Champions League out of Topps Chrome. They've kind of chunked all those things up into different ways. But they're definitely gathering all the things. They're gobbling up all the licenses and, building an empire. And so now they're the big player in the space.
They are. And they recently did get, speaking of soccer, they got the exclusive license for the Premier League away from Panini.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think they haven't yet come out with any Premier League sets.
Okay.
But they stole the license from Panini. Well, I shouldn't say stole. That's not the right word. They won the license away from Panini. And they are going to be producing Premier League sets, I think, starting next year.
Okay.
So we'll see. Yeah, so, I mean, they're continuing to build an empire, an exclusive empire within the trading card world. There's a lot of collectors that don't like exclusivity. There's a lot of collectors that say this is bad.
Yeah.
And I understand that. What's your viewpoint on that?
Generally, I probably lean in that direction to say just competition, breeds success. Like that adds more pressure to deliver a really good product. We have seen it in the past. Then I don't think any of the manufacturers are exempt from this, whether it's Upper Deck, Panini, Topps, or even some of the older ones like Fleer and Skybox, where they maybe I don't know, they kind of rested on their laurels a little bit, but then they actually started to deliver when there was more competition. We saw that in the 90s with the different brands, with Fleer competing with Topps, competing with Upper Deck. There was a lot of innovation and a lot of new stuff that was driven out of that. In recent years, it's almost become like a meme in some cases where it's like, what's up with the photography with this? What's up with the quality control? What's up with this? And when it's your only choice, there's no way for collectors to vote with their dollar unless they literally don't want to buy new cards. And there's a lot of people who this hobby means a lot to them. Ripping sealed wax means a lot. Buying secondary singles means a lot to them. It's their hobby. So they're like, I'm not willing to give it all up, but I'm also not happy. And that leads to a lot of the vocal stuff on social media and forums and other places.
Yeah. I get it for sure. In general, I'm a believer in free market competition for sure. I like there being multiple players. Yeah. I will say I am personally a big fan of Fanatics and Topps and some of the moves that Topps has made under Fanatics leadership. I think they've done a lot of collector-friendly, positive things. So if any company currently in the space is going to control an exclusive license at this moment, I trust Topps and Fanatics the most. Yeah. But I do hear what you're saying. Yeah. It is, if they make missteps in the future, if their quality or their commitment goes down in the future or their prices get too out of control or whatever it may be, it leaves collectors without an alternative.
I do think it's been funny. A lot of people who have maybe been collecting a lot of ultra modern have just gotten really critical of Topps and Fanatics and some of the moves they've made. And maybe a lot of them they're very anti-breaking, or they're protective of the younger generation and they don't want this to be seen as only about the money or a gambling aspect or all of these things. It's not stuff that they shouldn't be passionate about. But if they would really step back and take a look at the broader vision and what they're trying to do, or maybe if they were aware of the fact that Mike Mahan of Fanatics is literally in people's DMs asking them for clarifications, or pulling together collectors and saying, what do you think about this? What do you think? They're listening. They're actually listening. We can't really say that that has happened from the other manufacturers at all, frankly. I don't think anybody, and I'm not trying to throw shade, I don't know of a single instance ever where somebody from Panini slid into somebody's DMs to say, hey, what do you think about this product? What do you think we should be doing here? Hey, I saw you tagged us on your story. You weren't very happy about this. Or any kind of mea culpa whatsoever to say, we made a mistake. Is Topps batting 1,000 right now with every move they're making? No. I don't think anybody would be. And I think they're trying to go in the right direction with a lot of stuff. But it's a business. They paid big boy dollars for these licenses. They've paid big boy dollars to put it into a marketing sphere. And they're trying to build an empire. And that's what they're working towards. So, there's so many different niches and ways to participate in this hobby for everybody involved. I just think there's enough other bigger problems in the world. I don't understand the obsession from people who get really focused on the negative only. You and I have caught a lot of flack for supposedly being like part of club positivity and ignoring the negative. It's not what we've done. We've done the opposite. I think those people, should look at it and say, let me make sure I'm being realistic and reasonable and giving them a fair shake and acknowledging when they do something positive. And then it, probably adds a little more weight and credence to when you have a valid criticism about something. And they're going to keep working on it.
I would agree. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, because we've got Topps with these exclusive licenses for 20 years. Yeah. So that's the world that we're in. And hopefully Topps continues to do a good job and continues to do things the right way, or as good as possible. As you said, it's never going to be perfect, but as good as possible.
I will say one thing. It's actually unavoidable that there's always going to be people from every, let's call it like generation, loosely defined, decade, whatever, of collecting, who will get really cranky about change. Sure. And they just want to cling to their era. There's already people who just like the nostalgia of an era, like the 90s and stuff. But then it's almost like they need to talk themselves out of being part of the newer products and everything and just say, like, this was the golden era. That's fine. It's fine. If you want to only collect vintage cards, whether that's 50s or 70s or 80s, you want to collect 90s stuff all the way up until now. If you say, I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm only going to collect Panini products, from that era, that's fine. Like, that's always going to happen. But there's going to be a vast majority of people, newer people, who are going to want to buy modern athletes, new guys, and they're going to have a really good time doing that, getting into the newer top stuff. And I'm actually way more excited about it than I am the other way around.
Yeah, I agree with you. Those are all excellent points. It's worth noting, since we're talking about exclusivity, that even though Topps does not yet have the basketball license or the football license, they've been a little bit of a thorn in Panini's side because they've been signing certain key athletes to exclusive autograph deals. So those athletes are unable to sign cards for Panini. This has happened recently, most notably with Victor Wembanyama and CJ Stroud. And then there's others as well, plenty of other quarterbacks. But those are obviously big losses for Panini. So you still find Victor Wembanyama and CJ Stroud cards in Panini products. They just don't have autograph versions of their cards in those products. Conversely, Topps has been making unlicensed cards of those players with autographs, meaning no team logo, but the player's autograph. So it's a little bit, it's kind of split right now.
We're living in a weird time.
We're living in a weird time, and I look forward to getting the other side of it when Topps is able to produce the fully licensed NBA cards and NFL cards, which, year to a year and a half away. On the other side of the house, you got Panini. Panini currently has the NFL license and the NBA license. They do not have the Major League Baseball license, never have, but they do actually create some unlicensed baseball sets. You can buy Prism Baseball, you can buy Immaculate Baseball,
Optic
and
Baseball,
Flawless,
Baseball,
some of the others, just without the team logos because they're not officially licensed products. Much like how Topps has signed certain athletes exclusive, Panini's been doing the same. They signed they signed the Michigan quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. I believe they signed him exclusive. They've got Caitlin Clark exclusive. That's a really big deal.
And they have WNBA still.
And they do have WNBA. So while NBA is going over to Topps and Fanatics, Panini is retaining WNBA, at least for now. And they're going to have Caitlin Clark exclusive on autographs. So they're going to have a good product with WNBA for some time to come. Panini has been the big, powerful manufacturing company in the space, the biggest really for the last several years, because although Topps had baseball, it seemed like Panini had almost everything else. However, that is whittling away. As you mentioned, at one point, Panini had UFC and wrestling and almost, the vast majority of soccer and NBA and NFL. And these are all, many of these are hopping over to Topps. Yeah. So we're going to see Panini as an organization probably get a lot smaller on the American card scene, although they're still going to be around. They're still going to be creating certain soccer sets. They're still going to be creating WNBA. They may be continuing with some unlicensed sets for some of the other sports. We'll see what plays out. And of course, Panini has a long heritage over in Europe prior to ever starting to make sports cards in America, which they started back in 2009. Prior to that, for decades and decades, and continuing to this day, they would create stickers.
That's right.
Soccer stickers, World Cup soccer albums, Premier League soccer albums. Every year they would have different soccer albums, sticker albums, and you can still buy those. They're still popular whenever they come out over in Europe right now.
They are. Yeah, the stickers are very popular in soccer. It's been an interesting concept. That stuff hasn't taken off as much in the U.S. I think we all just think of cards. That we're like, give me the cards. What are you talking about? Sticker. So it's an interesting thing within the soccer space. They definitely still, many people tend to view those cards as like the rookie card when they come out, the rookie sticker. And some of them carry big time value. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out long term, especially as Topps and Fanatics are continuing to try to make more of a global push and have more global reach. If people a few years from now have the option of buying a Topps Chrome hobby box or Panini stickers, the variety, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. I think soccer is one of those sports, we've talked about this a lot, that has a ton of potential to grow because of its global popularity. If a wave of new people are constantly coming in and they see a Topps Chrome gold refractor or Topps Chrome sapphire or a sticker of a portrait of somebody just kind of like looking like this, I don't know what planet they would gravitate toward the sticker, but we'll see if those, if those withstand the test of time or not.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch for sure. Other manufacturers, you got Upper Deck. A lot of people probably remember Upper Deck from when they were kids. Of course, they were most notably known for the 1989 Upper Deck baseball set, which is when Upper Deck debuted for the first time. And in particular, the Ken Griffey Jr. card in that set, which remains one of the most iconic sports cards of all time.
Definitely.
And when Upper Deck came on the scene in 1989, they changed the game because they were a high-end card. Now, it's laughable today because today when you think about high-end cards like Boxes of Flawless or Topps Diamond Icons or whatever it may be, you're talking about a single pack selling for thousands of dollars. Back then, a single pack of Upper Deck cost a couple of bucks, but that was more than double what a pack of Topps or Donruss or Fleer was costing at the time. So people looked at Upper Deck like it was insane that you had this really, much higher end elevated set, but people gravitated towards it, and it really propelled Upper Deck as a brand ever since then.
It was interesting seeing the different technologies developed for printing and utilized in the 90s. Maybe developed is the wrong word, but starting to utilize them. Upper Deck featured, in many cases, high gloss cards. They also did a lot with foil. They put a lot of foil on cards. And then the third thing they did was they really leaned into that holographic technology when you saw a lot of different products, SP, SPX, even stuff out of Upper Deck flagship. A lot of those were what they leaned into. Topps went heavy into the refractor space. They were the first with the true refractors in Topps 1993 Finest Baseball and Basketball, and they went refractor. And then Fleer and Skybox really pushed the envelope with different card stocks, with acetate cards, with die cuts and laser cuts, really cool inserts. That was sort of their jam, doing that, as well as some other parallels like Ultra Gold medallions and Tiffany's and other things like that. So seeing how that all played out, back to that topic, is like, that drove each of those companies sort of leaned in heavily into a space and carved in an identity. I think now what we're seeing is Topps has said this, Fanatics has said this, they're trying to actually create really unique product identities within their portfolio. They're trying to do that so that if you like an insert heavy product or a parallel heavy product or an RPA heavy product or there's going to be something there for you, and ideally at different price points so that you can get in at any level. No matter what you like to collect.
Yeah, it's true. It's interesting how all these companies have developed over time. Today, Upper Deck is in the sports world exclusively hockey.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say exclusively. They do some golf cards. We'll talk about some of the other things.
Yeah.
But they're primarily hockey. They have the exclusive NHL license.
Yep.
That is going to continue for some time into the future. Fanatics has not gotten that one, so
Yeah.
Upper Deck will continue to be hockey.
Unless they buy Upper Deck.
You never know.
You never know.
Upper Deck was also Marvel cards.
Right.
But Fanatics recently got the Marvel cards
That was big
license
news.
away from Upper Deck. So starting in 2025, you're going to see Topps creating Marvel cards, and Upper Deck will no longer be creating Marvel cards.
The whole Disney portfolio.
Yeah,
Disney,
that's correct.
Topps Chrome Disney.
Correct.
They have Star Wars.
All that
they have
stuff will be
Marvel.
coming.
That whole IP and multiple IPs underneath the Disney brand are all now coming to Topps.
Yeah, Topps has created Star Wars cards for the last, I think, 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
Actually, technically going all the way back to the first set in 1977, I guess, was Topps created. But they've been creating them heavily over the last few years. But they didn't have Marvel. That was Upper Deck. And they didn't have the rights to do other more general Disney cards in the U.S. Now they will. And in 2025, they'll have essentially all of that, which will be interesting.
Yeah.
Leaf. A different Leaf today than the Leaf that we were used to as kids. Today's Leaf creates unlicensed sports cards. They'll dabble in football and baseball and basketball and some other sports, soccer, quite a bit of soccer.
Yeah.
A lot of autograph cards of players, no team logos.
Yep.
But then they also do like a lot of pop culture cards and a lot of like kind of different types of cards. They did like a whole pickleball set and product recently, for example. So Leaf is maybe a little more oddball in terms of the stuff that they do, but their cards tend to be less expensive.
They do.
Because they don't have to pay for the licensing. So you can sometimes get a box of Leaf cards that might have 5 autographs in it for the price of a box of Topps cards that might have 1 autograph in it, for example.
What Leaf lacks in licensing, I think they do a great job making up for with design and with the right autographs and the right pairings, and sometimes oddball pairings, like but it's interesting at least. They also do get game used memorabilia cards. So there are certain sets where you'll have like an actual piece of a game used jersey of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, like all the 8 great centers of all time. They do a lot of that stuff. It's really interesting. It's not. I've had to like learn to focus my collection, and one of the many ways I've done that is to mostly just not entertain unlicensed stuff. But there have been some Leaf cards that have jumped out at me, and it's not because they don't do a good job. And then, like you said, the other thing they've done is they've just carved out a niche with more of the pop culture space, which actually those cards are really popular. Like people who aren't as much into sports but are into celebrities and all that's music, they like to collect those cards. And some of the people who are dealers of those cards or sellers online, they'll tell you they do incredibly well with that stuff. Like even I've heard the value proposition opening Leaf products is far better than many times with the sports card products that you open. So they've carved out a good niche for themselves. Brian Gray obviously sold the company and exited, but he has a lot of confidence in the new leadership there, and I think they're continuing to do what he built.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure. Then there's other companies, smaller ones. You've got Wildcard, which like Leaf does some unlicensed sports cards. You've got Sage, same deal with them. And then there's non-sports brands. There's some upstarts like Saturday Morning Cards, which is a brand that started doing different types of pop culture cards not too long ago.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, you don't know
No.
Saturday Morning Cards?
No.
Yeah, it was started by some folks in the sports card hobby. And they've done a couple of releases so far. So and that's the point, right? You always are seeing new smaller manufacturers pop up and do different types of cards. Of course, I should mention we're not even getting into trading card games here. We're not going to include trading card games as part of our discussion. But if you want to venture to that world, then of course you've got Pokemon and One Piece and Magic.
I'm learning, but I'm the wrong person for that podcast.
There's so much. It's so deep. And half of our shop here at Cards HQ is dedicated towards trading card games. But that tends to be a different collector base. Yeah. So we're going to focus on sports and non-sports, but not get into trading card games during today's conversation.
Yeah. Maybe a few months from now, if you want to do a big deep dive into Star Wars Unlimited, I'll be more equipped for that. I'm learning that one a little bit and just trying to get more educated on that side of things because we have a lot of that data, much of that data in Market Movers, in our products to track the pricing for that stuff too. So that's an exciting one. Another one too, I think that you didn't mention is Jersey Fusion. That's another one that has carved out a little niche for themselves. They take existing cards and they sort of glue game-used relics, game-dated relics in many cases onto cards. So some people really like those, especially for like they'll put like Mickey Mantle cards and things together like that. But yeah, to your point, there is a lot of competition out there for stuff. It's just not always licensed.
All right, I want to get into sets next, because this is what's really important for the audience who's listening, who's trying to make the decision as to what to buy.
Yeah.
Whether they're walking into a sports card store, or they're at a big box store like a Walmart or Target, or they're shopping online, they're confronted with over 100 different set possibilities. You know, names they probably have heard of, like Topps Chrome and Bowman Chrome and Prism and Optic and Select and Mosaic, or Upper Deck Series 1, or the Cup.
Yep.
On down the line. And those are just a few of the more popular ones that I mentioned. But in reality, there are literally well over 100 sets across the different sports that come out every single year. So I want to make sense of this for the audience a little bit. And I'm going to start with a general word of advice that I know you agree with. I think it's really important. When starting out in sports cards, it's best to narrow your focus.
Yep.
And it's easiest and best to focus on the most popular licensed sets in each sport. I suggest to people, especially those who have any care about the long-term value of a card they might be buying, any type of investment mindset at all,
Yeah.
my advice to them is stick to one of the more popular licensed sets, because those are the ones that they're probably still going to have some form of popularity 10, 20 years from now, whereas your less known sets or your unlicensed sets, for the most part, probably aren't going to be as popular in 10 or 20 years, and therefore there's probably going to not be as much demand, and that means that prices are probably not going to be as strong. There are some exceptions, but as a general rule, stick with the most popular and stick with licensed. That would be my basic advice.
Well, we saw very little variety in terms of cards. In many cases, only literally one card for a player from a given year back to the 70s and earlier, right? And then in the 80s, in some cases, maybe we started to see two products producing a card for a player, or maybe like with 86 Fleer, they had the card and the sticker. Like there's different, once we started to see variety introduced in the 90s, in many ways, I actually believe this, that's what saved the sports card hobby. It was no longer just mass-produced junk wax single card where everybody has the card, and there's therefore no way in a supply and demand economy for that to hold value over time. We started to see introduced rarity, parallels, autos, all this stuff that we just talked about a little bit. That helped deliver value within those products and create a chase. If you look at the 90s, there was probably, in terms of variety, I'm just throwing a number out there, maybe 10% of the variety that exists today in terms of the number of sets, and then probably 10% of the number of variations, inserts, and parallels within a given product that there is today in a given set. So do the math on that, like 1/100th of the number of different cards, existing for a player or whatever. And even still, there's really only specific cards and specific sets from the 90s that hold strong value, even with a much smaller sample size. So as we go over time, this is the piece that we've talked about this many times. We talked about it in the last episode, this idea that your cards are all going to hold value. They're probably not. If that's your primary focus, is I want something that I'm going to wake up 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, what do I do? In addition to needing to really choose the best players of all time, you need to laser in on the cards that are going to be viewed as the most iconic. The good news is, in many cases, the hobby has sort of identified what that is. There are certain sets that are determined to be the key rookie cards, the key types of things you want to go after, some more than others, some sports more than others. But knowing what those are is really important if the monetary aspect is something that you even care about at all. If you don't, that's fine. You're more a pure collector. Then there's other products for you. But if you want to have something that stands out, it's got to be iconic and have staying power.
Great points, 100%. So let's help the audience identify what those sets are right now. I want to go sport by sport. And the sets that we're about to talk about, we're really talking about these from the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to buy a rookie card of Tom Brady, well, you're going to deal with a whole different set of sets, because that was back in 2001, right? So things were different back then, right? If you're trying to buy a rookie card of a guy from the 80s or a guy from the 50s, certainly it's different back then. we're really looking here at the last 5 years. And so if you're trying to buy rookie cards of players today, or if you're trying to walk into a sports card shop and buy a new box that came out in 2024, where do you want to put your attention? Where do you want to put your money?
Yep.
So let's start with baseball. Baseball's interesting on a very basic level. There's two main sets of products, two main brands, Topps and Bowman. Now, there's a whole bunch of different types of Topps, and there's a whole bunch of different types of Bowman. We're going to get into that. But Topps and Bowman.
Yep.
And there's one kind of key distinction between the two products. Bowman includes players from the minor league.
Yeah.
Bowman includes first prospect cards. Bowman First, the little 1ST up in the corner of the card.
Yep.
That is a player's first minor league card most often. Now, there are exceptions to that. There's times when a player didn't go through the minor leagues.
Sure.
In which case they're getting a first Bowman straight in the majors.
Yeah.
But it can happen. Ohtani is a good example of that. Or sometimes players who are maybe drafted, of course, they're going to get a Bowman draft card. But sometimes a player goes straight from college, a very, very short minor league stint, and then they're immediately in the majors. Happened with Paul Skeens this year.
Yeah.
He spent a few weeks in the minors, and that was it. And then he was right in the majors from LSU. So by the time he got a first Bowman card, he's already in the majors, right? But he still got a first Bowman card.
Yeah.
So Bowman is great for your prospecting, for your minor league players. And there's major league players in Bowman too, but they generally don't hold as much value.
Yeah.
Topps is your products for your rookie cards, for your players that have actually made it into the majors. So when you're thinking about a player and where you're going to invest, you can get their first Bowman card from when they were in the minors, or you can get their Topps rookie card from their first year in the majors. And that's kind of the distinction between Topps and Bowman.
Bowman prospect cards are really important. They've been around for 23 years now. Like, they're very more than that, but these first autos in particular, the Bowman Chrome autos, really important. It's really nice that the baseball card community has opted into having consensus that those cards are really the most important cards in existence for a player. Not everybody likes Bowman First cards. In many cases, you get like a 16 to 18-year-old picture of a kid, maybe 20, and they don't even look like themselves later in life, and they maybe have a minor league jersey or a completely different team than they end up even making their MLB debut for. There's a lot of things that people don't necessarily love about them, but the one really good thing is there's only one.
Yeah.
There's only one. It has the first stamp on it, and it either comes out of Bowman Draft, Bowman, or Bowman Chrome. It's always the Chrome autos that are what people go after, which are in the other two products. That whole trifecta gets a little bit confusing for people, but what you have to know is that those Bowman Firsts, they have the little first insignia on them, and unlike rookie cards, which now exist in multitudes of different products, that's the card, the prospect card for baseball. So those ones have incredible staying power, and it makes it really easy to focus in and say, if I want to put some money into a particular player, 98 times out of 100, they've got a Bowman Chrome auto or a Bowman Chrome refractor or something that I can go purchase and plan to hold that long term if I believe in the caliber of player. Rookie cards, much more difficult now, especially in the last 5 years. If you look at the last 5 years, going back to like 2020, the number of copies of rookie cards has gone up, the number of variations within a given product, the number of different products with rookie cards, all of that stuff has gone up drastically. Some people would say they like Bowman rookie cards better than Topps rookie cards, and in some cases those have staying power. In the case of Ohtani, his Bowman Chrome rookie auto commands a significant premium over his Topps Chrome rookie auto. So there's different, like in Sapphire, for example, he's got a Topps Chrome Sapphire auto that's much less expensive typically than his Bowman Chrome, which is the cream of the crop. So there's nuances there. I do agree generally that within Topps rookie cards, it tends to be like Topps Chrome, Topps paper flagship, black parallels, Independence Day parallels, ones that have been around for a while that everybody goes, we love these, don't you dare ever get rid of these Topps. Everything else becomes kind of a matter of preference. The one concern in that piece is the more they diversify the variations, the more people find what they believe to be a suitable substitute across these different products, and that does drive the price down in many cases on even those most flagship, most iconic rookie cards for baseball.
Yeah. No, it's a fair point. So a lot to digest there.
Yeah.
You mentioned Topps. You mentioned flagship, right? So people are referring to the paper version of Topps cards.
That's right.
Topps Series 1, Topps Series 2, Topps Update.
Topps Update.
Comes out 3 different times during the year. You get Series 1 around the start of the season.
Yep.
You get Series 2 later in the season.
Around the All-Star game.
And then you get Update towards the end of the season.
Recently, yep.
We just got Update here, and we're in the playoffs.
Yep.
And so those are the 3 most basic, least expensive Topps sets, because those are the paper cards. You can buy boxes of those typically for under $100 to get a hobby box.
Yeah.
However, it's hard to pull numbered cards, not a lot of autos, because they print so much of it. Those are products that they keep inexpensive, approachable for collectors, highly, highly produced and manufactured. Print runs that can approach $1 million for a single card at times, like big time print runs. And they do that because they want to keep these products accessible. It's their flagship. They want it everywhere. They want it easy for people to get. Still very fun to rip. Good products for people that are trying to build out a set of an entire team. Typically not as good from an investment standpoint, just because it's so common.
Yeah.
But then you can get into Topps Chrome, which is where things start to get a little higher end. Topps Chrome's more expensive. It's the Chrome version of the regular Topps cards. Yep. And then, of course, within Topps Chrome, you can get then parallels, all the way up to the Superfractor 1/1s. Yeah. You can get autographs, as you said, and different variations that become a lot more valuable. So from an investment standpoint, Topps Chrome is more of a signature product, I would say. There's also a Topps Chrome Update as well, which comes out later in the year.
Which is featuring the relatively new MLB debut patch cards, the RPAs that give the little patch from their first MLB game. So, yeah, both of those I would say are great products. I always rip a hobby box of every Topps paper product that comes out every year. I just like it. I got smoked on my Update box, but other people don't. It just depends. It depends on the product. The really nice thing about that product in particular, Topps paper, is you get a lot of variety out of it. And if you're trying to get something, if you're at the grocery store, hey, I want to pick something up for my kids, $25 for a blaster box, value box, I think they call it, hanger boxes. You can get in at different price points. They're going to get some rookies. They're going to get some of their favorite players. They're going to get generally some decently cool looking insert sets. And you have a chance at really big cards. Like we saw, I think it was, it's sore subject, but a few years ago, I believe it was the Wander Franco Platinum 1/1 was pulled out of like a blaster box or a Walgreens hanger box or something like that. And it went for big money. So that's the cool thing too. Is the odds good that you're going to get something big? No, but it does happen. And that's a really cool moment for, anybody like that's trying to just collect to hit something really cool that could be game-changing.
There are Sapphire versions of these sets as well, right? So Sapphire is a relatively new thing that Topps started doing. I don't know what year Sapphire started.
2016.
Yeah. So last certainly within the last decade that Sapphire started, and it's basically similar to the Topps Chrome cards, but it's got kind of a cracked ice type of finish to it. Topps calls it the Sapphire, finish to it, and those can be neat products to pick up as well.
Yep.
Then you've got a lot of other somewhat similar products using the Topps or Topps Chrome name, things like Topps Chrome Black, Topps Chrome Logo Fractor Edition, Topps Cosmic Chrome. That's a very popular one. Topps Gilded Collection. These are all kind of playing off of the Topps Chrome design with some types of modifications to it, some types of look to it. Some of these types of sets can become very popular with collectors because they really like the look. And sometimes they can become very, very expensive. I would say in the long term, you don't know if Topps Chrome Black or Topps, Gilded Collection or Topps Chrome Logo Fractor, you don't really know if those are going to maybe have the same staying power. If 20 years from now, people are going to be as excited about, Topps Gilded Collection as they have been the last few years when it's come out. So that's a little TBD. I would be, if you want the safer bet and you're trying to buy like a Topps player of a Topps card of a rookie that you really want to invest in, you're typically going to be better going with like a Topps Chrome parallel versus maybe getting a gilded collection card or a logo fractor or something like that, just because even though those cards are very popular today, we don't know how they're going to hold up over time.
I would say one of the parallels that's been around for a while, if you go with a magenta speckle to $299, that's a newer parallel too. So just doing a little bit of research, understanding a lot of times the true colors, what they call true colors, blue, to 150, like there's different colors
blue,
like
red,
that.
orange, green.
That's right.
Yep.
Going with those ones is going to get you just into the stuff that people know, and there is some really strong opinion in the baseball card world for investment purposes, for lineage, for like understanding, like I know this is predictable year over year. Everything else is sort of noise to me and more of a collector card, and going for some of those. There's also Topps Finest.
Yep.
There's Bowman's Best, which is an interesting product. Top Stadium Club, I'm particular to, great photography. So, the list goes on and on and on with the number of, you got Bowman, Sterling, and
you got all kinds of them. You got a,
Heritage,
Bowman Inception, Topps Inception, Platinum, Bowman Platinum, Big League Baseball archives. I mean, there's a bazillion of sets that they come out with. But I think sticking to the basics, your Topps Chrome, your Topps Flagship, these are good ways for people to get started. Your Bowman Chrome, your Bowman Draft. We talks a little bit about them. There's also Sapphire versions of Bowman as well. You can get Bowman Chrome Sapphire Edition. Yeah. But getting some of those first prospect cards from Bowman, or getting some of the rookie cards from Topps Chrome, Bowman Chrome, to me, that's just a very safe, basic way to go. Now, for a collector, some of those other sets that you mentioned are fantastic. Yeah. You mentioned Stadium Club as a personal favorite of yours.
That's right.
I would not suggest investing heavy in a Stadium Club rookie card of a particular player, but the photography on those cards is amazing. They got cool, they have cool, short prints of those cards.
They do.
That's a great set for somebody who just wants to build a collection of really cool looking cards, or collect cool looking cards of their favorite players. That's where that type of set really shines.
Yeah, Stadium Club has been growing in popularity. The short print image variations out of that product are kind of honestly taking off and going crazy. Maybe even a little overly inflated at this time. But you get on-card autos on the Stadium Club cards. And so there's a lot of stuff to chase out of those. There can be a case made for that product to say they're very affordable, like the rookie autos are very affordable and on-card and incredible images, that they might take off a little bit more, like gain a little more notoriety. Stadium Club's a product that's been around for a long time. It's been around since 1992. This is not something new. So it's almost a little confusing to me that it hasn't been more popular. The price has gone up on it in recent years, and it has started to pick up a little bit. But I do agree with your general sentiment that it's, as of right now, it's still not in the conversation for like A-tier iconic stuff that you could bank on and consistently over time.
You mentioned Topps Finest. Topps Finest has been around for a long time as well.
Yeah, since '93.
Yeah, and Topps Finest is another one that I would put like Topps Finest and Stadium Club in a tier above most of the other newer sets that have emerged over the last 10 years or so, because they both have more lineage. Yep. So I think as you go with the flagship type sets, Topps Chrome, et cetera, and then I think you maybe drop down to like a Stadium Club and a Finest, and then from there, and of course Bowman would be up in that top, Bowman and Bowman Chrome up in that top group as well. Yep. Another set that probably is grouped in terms of popularity with the Stadium Club and with the Topps Finest would be Heritage.
Yep.
Topps Heritage is pretty popular. They use throwback designs in that set. A lot of people like the rookie autos. They're on card.
That's right.
Red ink. Yep. Some of them
they're called Real One autos.
Yeah. Yep. People love those. Allen and Ginter, kind of a funky set, that people like, that is part baseball and part pop culture.
Yeah.
And then you got the high-end sets, and there's a lot of them. Topps creates a lot of sets that are really focused around patches and autographs. And you've got sets like Definitive, Diamond Icons, Dynasty, Luminaries, 5-Star, Tier 1, Tribute, and then the cream of the crop, Transcendent. Yep. These are all sets with incredible looking cards. Typically, they bring lots of historical athletes into these sets. You'll pull everything from cut autos of players from yesteryear, like Mel Ott and Hannes Wagner, to patches from, really cool looking patch cards from guys who are playing today, and everything in between. And so those are all fun sets to open. They all tend to be much more expensive. You get less cards. You pay a good amount of money. but it's a real experience opening up those boxes, and you can find some really cool stuff.
Really nice thing about baseball is there's 162 games in a season, so getting game-used jersey pieces and patches not as difficult as, say, like football, for example, with just 17 games in the regular season. So Topps does a really good job most of the time, including game-worn pieces for those baseball cards. Everything from just single-color jersey cuts in like a Topps paper that you get a relic card, up to these higher end where you get really, really nice, chunky patches, pieces of the team logo, lettering from the player's name, other things like that. This is a space that I think it is blossoming in baseball. Historically, RPAs, rookie patch autos, and other cards like that have not been anywhere near the tier of Bowman Chrome autos, like not even sniffing it. And it's laughable when you look at the price of, even up to this last year, of Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna Jr., Aaron Judge, looking at their Topps Dynasty RPAs, and then comparing those to the price of LaMelo Ball.
Right.
Like it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like you're talking 10,000 versus 100K.
Yeah.
For an NT vertical to 99, that's not even, numbered, or that's not even, game worn or anything. Like it's been a weird, so the gap on that is shifting. And Dynasty cards have been going up in value in a really healthy, steady way over time. And I think as Topps takes over the licenses for these other sports, and the basketball and football community, who are very used to RPAs being the cards to chase, start to come into this space, into the Topps world, I think that creates more buzz around Dynasty and some of these other products that you're mentioning. What can be just a little bit tricky is, like, because there are so many, how are we differentiating which one is the card? Which one is the card? How do I know that definitive or tier 1 or blah, blah, blah? And they put a lot of those in there for veterans too. Like, I've gone to shows where somebody had an entire Nolan Ryan, like 3-table spread of like relic and auto cards from all these different products. So they make a lot of them. So sort of like be aware of that too. If you see somebody that's new or just getting back into things might see a Nolan Ryan relic auto card and be like, oh my gosh, $100, for this card.
Right.
Not knowing that there's like thousands of different variations. Not that it's a bad card. It's still awesome. Just know that you have other options too, and don't get like swept away by thinking that you've got something crazy.
All good thoughts for sure. One more Topps that I wanted to mention. We're going to move on to football and basketball next. Topps Now. So Topps Now has gained a ton of popularity over the last year or two. Topps Now is on-demand cards that Topps puts for sale on their website, and they print to demand. So basically they put it for sale on their website for 48 hours after a particular event occurs. So earlier this year when Ohtani got 50-50, for 48 hours you could go on Topps website and buy a card of Ohtani getting 50-50, right? Or when, just recently when Freddie Freeman hit the home run in Game 1 of the World Series, the Grand Slam, that became a Topps Now card. You could order that for 2 days on Topps website. And they've been juicing that up a little bit recently by including special 101s that are autographed by the player that are randomly given to one person who ordered one of those Topps Now cards. So they've gained quite a bit of popularity. They are really not considered investment cards unless you happen to be lucky enough to get the 101. Typically, most of the other cards aren't going to hold any value because they're printed to demand. So in some cases, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of those cards get printed. They're not scarce. So not really investment, but they're kind of fun collection pieces and kind of fun to take a lottery ticket chance of getting one of those big 101 cards.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool idea. It's a great way to commemorate moments. Part of me wishes they would take those moments and then put it into a pack-pulled product and do that. Sometimes maybe they do.
Yeah.
But it's cool. And they're capitalizing on the FOMO and the heat and the hype and excitement of those moments, especially like last year. I remember Michael Harris Jr. made a crazy catch in the outfield, for the Braves in the playoffs. And ultimately that didn't matter too much, but it was a cool moment and they commemorated it. So it's a nice concept. It's nice that they're adding a chase into it. It's driving a ton of FOMO. People are buying these, not just one, but they'll go on and buy 10 or 20, and they even incentivize you by dropping the price per card down the more you buy. So we've seen some of these print runs get, up over $500,000 or whatever. It's pretty wild, but cool product, more of a collector item, not necessarily investable.
Agreed. And then there's, as I mentioned, there's some unlicensed baseball products. Prism, Select, Immaculate Baseball are all created by Panini. Fun to collect. They can be a good rip. They're a lot cheaper than their Topps counterparts often for what you get inside the box because they're not paying for the team licensing. Generally aren't good choices for long-term investment though because they're not licensed. Yep. I want to tackle football and basketball together because there's a lot of similarities. Both right now are created by Panini, and they tend to use the same brands across both. There are some exceptions, we'll note, but across both basketball and football, for your everyday collector, everyday investor who's going after a card that is going to retain popularity for many years, Prism seems to be king, right? True Prism, much like Topps Chrome, is essentially Panini's version of Topps Chrome, is Prism. And that's the most popular set. Now, there are variations of it. Football has no huddle and choice. Basketball has fast break, which is their version of no huddle. They've got choice. Basketball also has Monopoly Prism cards. These are all variants. They use different types of parallels. It's the same base card design, but with different parallels kind of applied, a different look applied to the cards. Tend not to have quite as much value long term. There can be some exceptions. Some of the choice parallels can be really popular, but for the most part, they tend not to be as valuable long term. The True Prism is what a lot of football and basketball collectors are really going after, especially when you get into the numbered parallels, the true colors, the numbered parallels, that type of thing.
Yep, color match is another big thing. If you get the team jersey color match, Luka Doncic has like a blue ice that is really expensive. It looks awesome with the jersey color, things like that. But yeah, Prism is the set. It's almost interesting because a lot of us compare, myself included, have compared it to Topps Chrome. But like if the product itself, Topps Chrome is a lot more similar to Donruss Optic, which is another product from Panini. In terms of the card stock, the feel, the parallels, the whole product offering, in some ways Prism stands on its own. Like it just sort of almost stands on it. And the price point for Prism, at least in recent years, has definitely stood on its own.
You're talking
really about
high.
$1,000+ for a hobby box, whereas Topps Chrome is, well, still significantly cheaper than Donruss Optic. So it's an interesting dynamic. Just the world of basketball and football cards, sealed box prices has been so much more than baseball cards historically. It can be kind of frustrating, honestly, for people. If they want to get into these flagship products and open them, they're probably in many cases looking at retail and trying to find blaster boxes, which go for $35, SRP at the store shelves. And a lot of times, unfortunately, there's not even a really good chase in those products to like even hit. You might hit some like retail exclusive non-numbered something, and that's about it. So many times something like Prism, a lot of people are just having to go to the secondary market to buy the cards that they want, as opposed to being able to, rip $1,000 or $1,500 hobby box of something without even great odds necessarily of hitting anything really good.
Yeah, it is pretty extreme. It'll be interesting to see how that changes when Topps gets the football and basketball license here over the next 18 months. Stepping down from Prism, you mentioned Optic already. Donruss Optic, a lot of people just call it Optic. As well as Select and Mosaic are kind of popular alternatives to Prism. They're all still the chromium card designs, different types of patterns. And they each have their pluses and minuses. Optic cards have the downtowns in it, which, at least for football, which is a popular chase. Select has different levels of their cards. They got the, concourse and the premier and the field level. Or they're different names for football, different names for basketball. So they kind of got different rarities of the cards, and they have their own unique parallels like Zebra Stripe, which the other brands don't have. Mosaic's got Genesis and Peacock and, other parallels that the other brands don't have that are popular as well. So they're all kind of their own flavors, but they're all a little bit kind of little brothers to Prism, I think you might say.
Yeah, that's true for sure. There's some overlap. It kind of drives me crazy. I wish there were more consistency. I wish, for example, that they wouldn't have different, like the same colored parallel in different products, where like green is a non-numbered retail parallel in Prism, and it's numbered to 5 in Optic and Select. It makes it really difficult on the collector. Like what am I after? Like, how do I know what I'm going after? Topps they're not always consistent with that, but they're more consistent. Like golds are usually numbered to 50, gold refractors and things like that. There's a little more predictability, but there's something in every one of these products that people generally like to chase after. Even with a product like a Mosaic, where it's like this, it's not the most iconic product, but people do like the Genesis. They really do like the Peacocks. They do like the gold refractor, you know, the gold prisms and other things like that. So knowing what's considered iconic and what's not is really important. And you know, you can kind of do some research on that or talk to the community, get involved in Discord, stuff like that to get more insight into those.
Optic does have the rated rookies.
They do.
And they have the rated rookies autographs with on-card autographs.
Yep.
So out of those products I just mentioned, I would veer towards Optic as being the more superior one. If you're trying to collect a rookie card of a football player, I would look to the rated rookies in Optic or the rated rookies with the on-card autographs, especially over Select or Mosaic. But other people may have different opinions about that.
If I'm going secondary market, then I like those. There was a period where Optic Hollows almost went 1-to-1 with Prism Silvers, and everybody kind of thought, okay, good. And then Select, the same thing started to happen back when it was a simpler product, we'll just say. And then the separation kind of went back to Prism, where everybody's Prism, Prism, Prism. Part of it's because the collective mind, if you think about how people participate in the sports card hobby, some people can only saturate their mind with so much variety. Just like with many things in life, you have like the technological, you know, early adopters all the way to the laggards on the curve, on the technology adoption curve. It's the same thing in sports cards. Some people don't have time or the will to know what all these different products are, so they're sort of like, give me the Prism. I know what Prism is. I can learn the product. I can go this way. Other people like to dabble in all these other, you know, different things. If I'm choosing between ripping Prism, Optic, Select, or Mosaic, I'm ripping Select. And it's a double-edged sword, because you and I both lament the fact that there are now 4 to 5 different levels in these products with a billion different parallels. But if you go to YouTube and you type in any Select box from the last 4 years to see a box break, they almost always either have in the thumbnail or the title, massive hit, kaboom, loaded box, treasure trove, something that suggests, because first of all, it's all the top rookies in every level, and then it's all like almost all the top veterans spread out through the different levels. So the checklist itself of the players is very strong, generally speaking, and then there's just a boatload of parallels. At least immediately upon the release of the product, those parallels tend to command a lot of money. I hit with my son a Victor Wembanyama white, you know, Select number to 175 that we sold for a decent amount, like $800 on eBay. I've never hit anything close to that value out of Prism, anything Prism that I've opened. But I don't open a lot of hobby. That was out of a blaster box. So like whereas Optic can be really tough, but some of the secondary market cards can be a much better value buy, and like you said, on-card autos and other things like that. So there's a little bit of a difference, I would say. Like, if you want to open the box and have a good time, look for value, go for something like Select. If you want the secondary market and staying power, then I'd probably go Prism, Optic, you know, for the long-term horizon of what those cards could stay with.
Very fair. And then there's Contenders and Contenders Optic. That's kind of interesting, particularly in football.
Yeah.
Contenders has a little bit more lineage in football simply because Tom Brady's iconic rookie card, the one that everybody wants, the high-end one with the autograph on it, is Contenders. Yeah. So because that was Contenders, I think to this day remains fairly popular, specifically for rookie ticket autos. So really the whole reason to buy Contenders and Contenders Optic is to get the rookie ticket autos, the rookie cards of the players with the on-cards autographs. And they're available in basketball as well. They're not quite as popular in basketball, but they are still, I would say, overall considered to be a pretty good set, specifically when it comes to rookie autographs.
Yeah, I agree. Football, definitely, it has staying power. It's not a product I'm personally a big fan of. If I'm being honest, I think it's a little contrived, but a lot of people do like it. And in football, those are among the best, most, you know, desired, sought after autos that you can go after.
On the lower end in football, in football and basketball, you have Donruss, the paper version. So the non-optic, the non-chromium, You've just got Donruss paper. That's a popular lower end, cheaper to get into product for both football and basketball. Football's also got Score, which is a brand that, you know, I collected as a kid. Donruss has Hoops, or I'm sorry, I should say basketball. Basketball is Hoops, which is a brand that I also collected as a kid. And those are both inexpensive, you know, paper cards, you know, easy to get into products. On the high end, National Treasures, Flawless, immaculate, impeccable, and Eminence. Eminence is considered the highest end of all of them, but it's a set that isn't released every
limited
year.
Release,
it's like
yeah.
one out of every 5 years or something like that. From a practical standpoint, National Treasures and Flawless kind of stand as the top two in terms of really high end. Both of those sets are known for their rookie patch autos, their RPAs. And if you have a National Treasures or Flawless rookie patch auto of any top player, that's going to command serious money. That's true for both football and for basketball.
Expensive boxes to open, not always the best odds. I definitely prefer Flawless head and shoulders above the rest because the patches are game worn. The player wore them in a game. The rookie cards are the only game worn jerseys, RPAs for any product. And so in my mind, that sets it apart and should set it apart more than it does today, in my mind, from National Treasures, which does have a lot of lineage. But I think, Flawless, definitely the cream of the crop when it comes to the high-end Panini market.
Yeah, and I think long-term from an investment standpoint, looking back at these sets we just talked about, Prism, National Treasures, Flawless.
Yep.
Those are obviously National Treasures and Flawless is going to cost you a pretty penny. But those three are likely to have a lot of staying power. And, some others, like some of the others we mentioned as well, like Optic too.
Yeah.
But those three in particular, I think, are going to have the most staying power long term.
There are other products that exist that are a little more niche too, within, the Panini world. Basketball has a product called Revolution.
Yep.
That's all about shine and dazzle and whatever. That can be a really fun product and a little more cost effective to open, even a hobby box many times. And there are some case hit chases like Galactics and other things like that. And then you have products like Court Kings in basketball. I don't know if that's you were getting to that, but that's sort of like, it's an artistic set. It's a little polarizing. It's one of my personal favorite sets. It might be my favorite Panini set. Just very artistic design, like actually like kind of graffiti style or just Art Deco, like all this different stuff. And they do some of the different rookie tiers too. People often refer to them as levels. The checklist technically calls them like rookies 1, 2, 3, and 4. The inserts is what Court Kings is known for the most. Really, really cool creative inserts like Blank Slate, Aurora, Cinque Pubelle. There's others too that look really cool. It's just a visually dynamic set. I'll put it that way. It's not necessarily the most popular outside of like some of those iconic insert sets, the Blank Slates in particular, that may hold a lot of value over time. You get other things like Origins, Obsidian, and some of those other products. Noir is another one that's kind of got a bit of a cult following. So
yeah, and I want to mention in basketball, Crown Royale is where Kabooms come out of, which people care about that. In football, they come out of Absolute.
Yep.
So in football, if you get Absolute, that's where you get your Kabooms as well as your explosives.
Yep.
Basketball, you've got 1 and 1, which is a popular single card set, kind of like a Topps Dynasty. You just get 1 card per box.
No, 1 and 1. Basketball has 2.
Oh, that's true. I guess you get
football
one
has
in case,
1.
I guess you get 1 in case card and then like 1 normal card in the pack,
it's super
right?
weird. Yeah.
But that's where you can get. They also have downtowns in that product within basketball.
Yeah.
Spectra is another one, which has some cult following. Tends not to be the most investable long term, but has some cult following. And then there's Luminance in football is I know one that both of us like, even though again not really probably investable, but actually a great set to open. A lot of really good photography in that set, just like Stadium Club in baseball. Phoenix I think is kind of cool. Zenith is where you get your Zoom cards out of. So football's also got Certified and Elite, which are kind of lower end, easier to get into.
Basketball has Certified.
Basketball is Certified as well. That's right.
And
then
Elite, actually both of those.
And then both have Chronicles.
Yep.
And what Chronicles is basically a grab bag product of all of the other products.
Yeah.
So because Panini has all these other brands like Flux and XR and all these other brand names that they don't even release on a year-to-year basis. So they put all of them in Chronicles, and you open up a pack and get all kinds of different brands all in one pack.
They've used it as a way. It's an interesting product. They've used it as a way. It's a bit like Topps Composite that just came out. They'll put sets that are discontinued into it, which is kind of cool. They'll pay some homage to some older sets. They'll put a set that exists, for example, in football in as a subset into Chronicles basketball. And then, because they'll do that for Luminance. There's no Luminance basketball, but they'll put Luminance cards into Chronicles. And then they'll actually sometimes do a teaser of the future where they have, you know, something like a Flux in that product, and then they release it as its own standalone product in the future. So it's hence the name is pretty, you know, pretty relevant, Chronicles. And that's a set that if people are like, hey, I want to open something, I want to get something for my kids and I want to have fun and maybe get some value out of it, the ceiling tends to be limited out of Chronicles, but so too does the floor. You're getting a ton of rookies and a ton of superstar veterans, getting LeBrons and Giannis's and Jokic's and all kinds of stuff like that. I've never opened Chronicles and been like, bah, I just got crushed. That felt terrible. It's like a fun product to open. There's a lot of variety. You're going to see a lot of fun things. And especially if your kids are trying to just collect and build and have stuff to trade with their friends, they're going to get stuff they really like out of it. And the value isn't, is there too. So that's kind of like, I think that fits squarely into that space of mostly not an investable product, but a really fun collector product to open that you're not going to feel gross after opening.
Totally agree. I completely agree with that. Panini has Panini Instant, which is their version of Topps Now.
Yep.
So it's their ability to create kind of in the moment cards. They don't use it as heavily as Topps has been using Topps Now, but they will use it for like draft night cards. So right when players are taken in the NFL draft, they'll get a Panini Instant card that you can buy that same night. And that, that will be that player on draft night putting on their jersey, that kind of thing. I also want to mention college cards because these are big. These have become big in both football and basketball. Topps makes Bowman University football and Bowman University basketball. Panini makes Prism draft picks for football and for basketball as well.
Yep.
And these have gained popularity. Now the difference between those two is that Bowman University, Topps now will make that featuring players in their freshman, sophomore, junior year in college, whereas Prism Draft Picks is focusing on players who were just drafted.
That's right.
In their college jerseys, but not they. It's
just like an early release product,
right?
Yeah.
So Bowman University is really interesting. Is actually gaining popularity. You're seeing players like Caleb Williams, who gets drafted and is now playing in the NFL. Well, his first Bowman University card was back in 2022 with USC. So you can go back just very much like how Bowman in baseball is the minor league cards, and you can get their first prospect cards from their first year in the minors. Bowman University has now provided that for both football and basketball.
When the announcement came out that those Wemby autos would be in the Bowman U with the redemptions to go meet Wemby, I bought 3 or 4 boxes at like $170 a box, and I was like, these are going to be so hot. And I bought them. They went up a little bit, and then they just sat there. And then the redemption thing happened, and then the prices came way down to like $120, and I was just sitting on them. And then I wanted to buy a card for my collection, and I was like, sunk cost fallacy. I'm just going to sell these boxes. I sold them to Cards HQ, right? When you guys were getting ready to do your opening. And then they just like took off and went crazy. And that product got super popular all of a sudden. I don't even know what the catalyst was ultimately, like what changed for people that they suddenly started getting really excited about it. But that product has gotten really popular. And there are a lot of really diehard college fans out there too who I think are like, this is fun having a chance to get into the game early, much like baseball prospecting before these players ever get into the pros, just to be able to get a jump if you have a hunch, on a player.
I like being able to get my Florida Gator players in their college uniforms, which the first year Bowman used a new product. The first year it came out was 2022, and they did not have the college uniform licensing. So they were, airbrush jerseys. But then starting in 2023, Bowman U got the college licensing, so all the players are in their actual college jerseys. Mm-hmm. So you can get a Graham Mertz card in a Florida Gator, logo. I'm going to be really excited about DJ Lagway's cards, which is the new freshman quarterback at the University of Florida, who was the #1 overall quarterback recruit coming out of high school, Gatorade All-American, actually Gatorade National High School Football Player of the Year, and now he's starting for the Gators in his freshman year. That's a guy who could very well go on and become the #1 overall draft pick in 3 years.
Yeah.
And so being able to buy his cards as a freshman, hopefully he's in the checklist for the next Bowman U, being able to buy his cards as a freshman in his University of Florida stuff, that's a guy who I'm going to go after all of his cards.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hopefully try to find his like Superfractor 101. I'll pay big dollars for that.
It's been interesting too with even like positional players or even linemen. Sometimes those players are a lot more popular with their college fan base, you know, than they are when they go into the pros. Joe Alt is a guy who played for Notre Dame, who was a top draft pick, went to the Chargers, and his cards have done pretty well, like in the collegiate stuff. Like that people want those cards. Like Notre Dame fans want those cards. Like you're kind of have that personal sentiment of like the send off. Like, hey, you carried our team to a lot of success while you were here in college. It's cool now. You know, maybe I'm not a Chargers fan, but I can get your stuff, you know, in those college jerseys. And I agree. A lot of people find those really, really popular.
Worth mentioning before we move on to the other sports is Topps is currently making Topps Composite and Topps Motif Football, which are non-licensed products, and they're making Topps Chrome Basketball non-licensed until they get the actual license a year from now. They've had some fun autos in there. Like that's where they're putting their Victor Wembanyama, their CJ Stroud autos. They're also putting a lot of fun veteran autos in those products. For the most part, probably not, you know, very investable outside of some of those autos of some of those key players, which may hold value. Let's talk about hockey. We're not going to go as in depth into hockey because simply not as many people listening collect hockey, but the fan base that does collect hockey is diehard.
Yeah, as diehard as they come, honestly.
There's less hockey sets than the other. There's still several hockey sets a year from Upper Deck, but there's less. And hockey's a little simpler. You've got Upper Deck Series 1 and 2, which is your flagship product. That's kind of your equivalent of your Topps baseball products, right? Your your Topps and your Topps Update and your Topps Chrome. Upper Deck Series 1 and 2 is that flagship. And that's the product where they have the Young Guns. And the Young Guns are the sought-after rookie cards, the kind of the basic rookie card for any hockey player. You've then got the other rookie cards that are really popular are your Future Watch autos, which come in a product called SP Authentic. And so that's another product produced by Upper Deck. And those are on-card autographs, typically numbered, I think, to $9.99 of all the top rookies, higher end cards than the Young Guns are. And then you've got the Cup, which is hockey's version of National Treasures or Flawless. It is your rookie patch autos. That's where you're going to spend a lot of money on a box, but you're going to pull really cool patch cards, really cool autograph cards, a small number of cards in a box, just like National Treasures, just like Flawless. And you get your RPAs. So if you have a box of the Cup from 2016 and you pull a Connor McDavid, or if you've got Connor Bedard, you know, from last year's Cup and you pull his RPA, those are going to be worth tens of thousands of dollars.
They haven't historically had a ton of parallels for the Young Guns cards either. They had like the Canvas, Young Guns Canvas. They have the French equivalent, Jeune Loup. They have, the clear, like acetate ones, but they've started adding in more, including the one-of-one Young Guns Connor Bedard that has yet to surface.
Yeah, we haven't seen that one yet.
Nobody's seen it publicly.
It had like $1 million bounty.
It was huge. It was huge. So that's interesting. It's interesting to see Upper Deck start to lean into that a little bit more. The hockey card collecting, the hockey collector base is, like I said, it's as committed as any sport. I mean, maybe more so. And I find that the hockey card space in general to be a lot more pure. A lot more. Most people who are dabbling in hockey cards collect hockey cards. They really like their teams. They love the sport. We know how Canadians feel about hockey. It's king up there, and there's not even a close second. And so they're really, devoted to that. And in some ways that makes it a lot of fun. Hockey's not a sport that I've ever been super into, only because I'm really into football and basketball, and it's during the same time of year. It just makes it impossible to watch the games. But it's an exciting sport. It's a lot of fun. You've been to the Toronto Expo before and talked to a lot of those, hockey diehards. It's a cool sport. And if you're into hockey, in many ways, I kind of envy it a little bit, just because it's such a tight-knit community, and it's a simpler product offering too that I think their Upper Deck's doing a good job, like incrementally building upon without flooding it and overwhelming people and killing them. So really fun sport to collect. I do own some hockey cards, some Red Wings stuff, and some other things, and I think hockey cards will be around for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great collector base for sure. And I've ripped a couple of boxes of Cup before, and man, that's
such a cool
thrill.
product.
It's a cool product and less expensive than still expensive, but less expensive than Flawless or National Treasures or your equivalents in baseball, like a high-end baseball product like a Diamond Icons or Dynasty or that kind of thing. Are those cards cool?
Yep.
The patch cards in hockey are the best because they're just so colorful and creative. So yeah, all of those products are fun ones to rip. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the other products. I do briefly want to mention soccer. Since you have both Topps and Panini playing within soccer, it's interesting because you get fully licensed Prism, but you also get fully licensed Topps Chrome.
Yep.
I think everything we talked about, you see a lot of the same brand names in soccer. So you see Prism, you see Select, you see Obsidian, you see Topps Chrome, you see and then you see some new ones as well. You see a product like Merlin, which is actually kind of almost more of a prospecting product. In some ways, Merlin is maybe a little more like Bowman is in baseball, where you see a lot of rookies, a lot of young players for the very first time in Merlin before they find their way into the other soccer products. But I would say for the most part, those key brand names that we've talked about in this show, Topps Finest, another one, you'll see those products within the soccer realm, and you're pretty much going to want to go for those key names. Yeah. Your Topps Chrome numbered rookie card or your Prism numbered rookie card is going to be a really good one to have. Now, soccer didn't always put rookie card symbols on the rookies, but they have started doing that more in recent years. Yep. And those are going to be ones, that are going to have staying power, given how Fanatics and Topps are actively trying to get exclusivity over all these licenses. I probably would veer in the Topps Chrome direction, and I would probably be either looking at Topps Chrome UEFA Champions Club or UEFA Club competitions as, where you're trying to find the rookie cards, like a Yamal, for example, this year. If you want to get one of his numbered cards, I get it from that set.
Yeah. It's very league driven. So there's a lot of different products. Most of the sets that are coming out are products that have good lineage, like you said, Topps Chrome, Prism, etc., Optic. They actually put the Optic cards as inserts into Donruss, so it's one product, and you can get the paper and the Optichrome cards out of the same product. Almost all the sets themselves are like good products that they're making soccer for, because there's just not as much. They're not making all these ancillary products, for these, generally speaking. But it's very league driven. So Topps Chrome Bundesliga is not going to have the same market demand as Topps Chrome Champions League.
Right.
It's just not. So you're kind of starting Prism World Cup, Topps Chrome Champions League, Prism EPL, Topps Chrome Club Competition, and then it sort of goes down from there. There can be exceptions if you have like a breakout rookie who's on one of the German teams or something like that, maybe. But generally speaking, if you have these cards coming out of these different products, like the World Cup, the World Cup Messi is going to be worth more than like one of those lower tiers. Yeah. Because it's just like it's sort of like just how it gets stratified. So understanding the league and the notoriety of the league or the tournament is far more important with soccer than understanding like set nuances, because you'll see the same thing across the board. Yeah, and you mentioned sometimes you get a rookie in one of those leagues. Holland was in Bundesliga. Yes, so his rookie cards were actually in Topps Chrome Bundesliga. Was it in Bundesliga or was it in Topps Chrome Champions League? I think it was in Bundesliga, wasn't it? He was in Bundesliga at the time. He played for Borussia Dortmund, but it may have been odd. They may not even had a distinction at the time. That's true. You might be right. I don't know. I guess I should know that, but today they have Bundesliga as its own set for Topps Chrome, just like Prism has La Liga is as its own set for Prism. Yep. Serie A has its own set of cards, etc. So yeah, you can go by the individual league, or you can look up to the Champions League, or as you said, World Cup. All kinds of different ways you can go in soccer. Yeah, sticking with the biggest brands is going to be your best bet for the most part. Yep. UFC and wrestling both transitioning from Panini to Topps. Topps has already taken over UFC and has already put out Topps Chrome UFC. It hasn't been as popular recently with Topps. It hasn't. We'll see what UFC does. Those cards kind of had a real boom a few years ago when Panini really got behind them, and Prism UFC and everything recently. Yeah, I know Topps, they haven't sold as well since Topps, and I don't know if that's just
not as many people collecting UFC cards at the moment, or people not liking the Topps products as much. I'm not sure what the, you know, what's going on with it at this moment, but
they made a Knockout, which was more of like a condensed high-end product. They made Midnight, which was also a single pack product.
Beautiful cards.
Nice cards. I think they've got a little more work to do somehow, like you said, to penetrate that audience, because the Prism UFC and Select UFC in particular were very, very popular products. So we'll see how Topps can lean into that a little bit more and capture that group.
Yeah. Yeah, and wrestling, Prism, WWE's been really popular the last few years. We'll see what that looks like in the future with Topps. Golf, Upper Deck is still creating golf products. You see come out with a release or two every year or two, it seems. They hadn't come out with one for a while, but then about a year ago, they started coming out with a couple more releases again. So haven't seen a lot of buzz about them. We got a few boxes here in the shop. Kind of a specialty collector audience, but they're fun to open up one. Tennis, Topps came out with Topps Chrome Tennis. They've had a couple of releases of that now.
It's been popular, actually.
Yeah, and there hadn't been a tennis product in years, and then Topps came out with Topps Chrome Tennis over the last couple of years. So it's good to see that again. And then earlier in the show, we mentioned pop culture. You've got Leaf actually creating a lot of pop culture products like Pop Century. That's a very popular product from Leaf. If you want to pull autographs of actors and musicians, Leaf Pop Century is a great product to consider for that purpose. They have a fun checklist each year. And then Topps will be coming out with the Marvel products. Upper Deck had them up through this year. Topps will start coming out with them next year. Topps will continue to make Star Wars, which has become really popular. And Topps will soon be coming out with Disney products as well, starting next year.
Yep.
So a lot of ground we covered there.
Yeah, I mean, there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
Is really the point. And like you said, we didn't even get into the TCG space and all the other things. There's a lot. People like to collect. This is a hobby. I know we're a sports card investor. We're both collectors. I collect a lot. I collect a lot of different things. And I'm personally grateful for the variety, in many ways. So it's nice. There's a big difference, and I think we tried to make that distinction here about investability versus collectability and what to go after in each of those spaces. I don't think either one's wrong, and I think it's important that both exist. So no matter what, I always end up, just saying, like, keep on collecting, make sure to have fun, like that's how I end the videos. So that's kind of the message here today. Know what you're getting into is really the biggest message.
Well, there certainly are a lot of sets for people to choose from to have that fun. Indeed. And hopefully we gave everybody out there a little bit more of an insight into those today. T Pott, thank you for joining the show.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate having you here. And thank you all out there for listening. And I want to remind you, the full-length episodes of this show, The Geoff Wilson Show, are not only available on YouTube under The Geoff Wilson Show on YouTube, but they are also available on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. So subscribe everywhere so you can listen to this show on the go. Thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you soon with our next episode. Take care.